Hey everybody, Ty here. I hope everyone's doing well. So, in recent time, it's been pretty hot across the board here, especially over towards the eastern states. I'm actually going to go back before we start the outlook for next month here to show you just what we've been dealing with and what we may continue to deal with in regards to the temperatures over here as we enter the month of June here. We have record breaking temperatures actually ongoing and are expected to continue over towards the eastern half of the US here, with some of those well above average temperatures expected to shift its way into the mid Atlantic and parts even the Northeast here. But there will be some changes, and this is ultimately going to affect the outlook that we see for next month here. This is a sign of the times here, especially this part out towards the west, so make sure that you're making note of that. But right now, if you're over towards my area, for example, we're well into the 90s. By the end of the week, we may even get close to 100 in Atlanta alone. And there are plenty of areas east of the Mississippi River that are in jeopardy of reaching those triple digit temperatures. So, uh, definitely is feeling like the dog days of summer pretty early. Usually, I wouldn't expect to see something like this until maybe July, but weather pattern has persisted in such a way to where we've had a little bit of a wrench thrown into the norm here, so to speak. But in regards to next month here, this is what our temperature outlook is looking like as of right now. There will be a follow-up video on this on the final day of June here, which will be next week. So we'll have a follow-up video then. That I can almost guarantee at this point now. But in case you are wondering how we ended up with this, right now, what we have going on here basically is already going on here. So we have a big ridge that's causing this major jump in temperatures over the deep south here in the southeast. As this ridge moves out, our temperatures here are expected to stabilize while the new ridge over here begins to develop. This also probably slow down some of the severe weather potential out here towards the northern plains because these guys have been getting walloped quite a bit lately. There have been a few tornado outbreaks, some big damaging wind events as well with this. So it'll probably be a welcome break for a lot of these guys up here towards the Dakotas, towards Minnesota, maybe even towards Canada. So a little bit of a break in the action for these guys. And then over here, the weather's going to start to get more active here as well. I would expect to see more chances for some troughing to occur here, and with that will increase the chances of showers and thunderstorms. And that's perfectly backed up here based off the precipitation outlook we have to go along with this. And it's the same thing with the ridge here. Usually you tend to have more fair weather under a ridge because typically what will happen will end up getting high pressure over towards these regions. Usually strong high pressure whenever you have these below precip averages at this percentile here. We're looking at the 50 to 60 percentile here. And so it's considerable confidence already at this point in time in regards to the monthly average in regards to precipitation. Again, as I mentioned before, towards the east, we're kind of backing up the thinking that we're going to see a lot more activity over here. The storm track's going to be more favorable for towards this region. There is, however, going to be a little bit of a wild card here, and I think this will be a bit more of a wild card for Canada more so than I would say the Northwest would be. The fact that we have a lot more chances for above average precip, maybe over towards northwestern parts of Alaska. This was towards southern and eastern parts of Alaska. I would say we need to keep a little bit more of an eye on the Northwest here as we go forward. But as of right now, I would say that I think things are going to, for the most part, remain as they are here. We're going to probably have a slower month in regards to precipitation here. This, of course, is due in large part to our ENSO region. We have been in a neutral ENSO for a little bit now, and that is expected to continue. I can actually show you the graph here in regards to the forecast as we go throughout the summer and even into the fall here. This is not going to really be of much surprise to anyone here. This is where we are currently. This is June, July, August here. We're pretty much holding steady, and really as we head even into next year, we're probably going to remain in that neutral ENSO phase. So we're going to see temperatures a little bit, we're going to see times where we'll have some active storms here, but things are going to be a little bit closer to the norm. We've been kind of usually either into the El Nino range, which is up here past this zero.5 degree mark here, and La Nina below this range here. But we've been holding pretty steady really throughout the course of the year here, and like I said, I would expect this phase to continue for at least the next maybe 4 to 6 months even at this point in time. So you still get, like I said, still get anomalous weather, but things are a little bit closer to average. Really, the storm track is more so the determining factor. But when we end up having cooler than average temperatures, hurricanes can sometimes come into play. When we have well above average temperatures towards this region of the ocean here, we can have more heat waves, more wind shear, a whole bunch of different stuff ends up happening. I have a video where you can actually look into the details a little bit further from this point. But in any case, let's go ahead and take a look now at our oscillations here, because this is going to be the key factor in what we end up seeing in regards to our weather in the future here. So the two areas, as I mentioned in all of my Outlook videos, two areas we always watch. There's going to be one that's over here towards the North Pole here. This is the Arctic Oscillation. And then there's another one over towards Greenland, the North Atlantic Oscillation, or NAO. So the AO and the NAO here. Both of these, by the time we get towards next week, which is the 29th, it's in a negative phase. So if we move this forward here, we're going to see cold air kind of circulate, and then we're going to see one more week here where we're going to be dealing with those below average temperatures and increased weather activity over here towards the western states here. In fact, there's been enough cold air to come in where we even have snow that's been ongoing over here towards Montana, and maybe a little bit more to follow. But this in time will of course begin to shift as our pattern begins to shift. We have a little bit more cold air set to move in that first week of July here, so this will affect the 4th here. But by this point, the good news is for anyone that's over here towards the east, anywhere east of the Mississippi here, we'll start to see that warm air mass and that ridge begin to start moving, thankfully. While in the meanwhile, we're going to see a new ridge begin to pop up here over towards the southwest. As a result, as we keep moving forward here, we'll see that cold air mass kind of stall out over here towards Canada, and then we're kind of back to average here. Well, on the downslope of this ridge here, we start to see a little bit of troughing occur, and this is going to bring back those shower and thunderstorm chances over here towards the southern states going forward. And then as we continue to go forward, we'll see that ridge continue to kind of build and expand even into the southern plains as we get towards that final week of July. And then by the time we get into the beginning of August here, we're kind of holding that pattern at this point in time here. Keep in mind, this is of course over a week-to-week basis, so there's a lot of finite details that we aren't able to really see at this point. But based off of the predominant pattern, we're going to start to shift in what's called a positive PNA, where we're warmer out towards the west and cooler out towards the east. Right now, we're kind of in the opposite here. We're kind of in a neutral or a weak phase of which we'll call a negative PNA, where it's definitely hotter out towards the east and cooler out towards the west. So again, we'll take a closer look from the view of the lower 48 here in regards to the air masses that we have here. This is our ridging that we have here out towards the east and our troughing towards the west. Now as we go forward here, again, here's that trough. And then as we go forward from there, here's where the ridging occurs here, and here's our new trough here, beginning to emerge as we head into the beginning of August from this point. So how exactly it affects our temperatures, more like this right here. So center of that air mass that we have going on right now, this is where we're going to have the greatest anomaly for temperatures here. These brighter shades of pink, we could be as much as 30 to even 35 degrees above average towards these areas. And in these areas where we're in towards the darker blue and even little small shades of purple, we're about maybe 15, potentially up to maybe even 25 degrees below average. Now watch what happens as we go forward. We kind of level off as a whole in regards to the entire lower 48 here. There are still some areas where we're below average, and we're going to continue to see that in a couple isolated pockets here and there, but for the most part, we're not to the point where we're dealing with major temperature extremes those first couple of weeks. We're still seeing areas that could be 5 to 10, maybe even 15 degrees above average, but we're not seeing those brighter colors just yet until we get towards the very end of the outlook here. The very end of the outlook is where we start to see the higher probability of those above average temperatures, mainly over towards the northwestern states. We'll have to see what this ends up looking like as we go forward. probably get a better idea as we look at it next week. But I would say right now that the way things are, we're not looking entirely awful here. Now, of course, we weren't necessarily taking into account the fact that we had such a huge ridge come in over here. Because if you looked at last month's temperature outlook, what you would notice is that this outlook looked a lot similar to last month's outlook here. So again, I'm really curious to see how things kind of pan out from this point here. Now let's shift our attention over to what our precipitation anomaly might look like. For the most part, I would say that we're not going to have any extreme changes here on this map. And I'm going to have to reset this here. I usually have a secondary window open. But this isn't too far out of the norm from what we've been seeing these last couple of weeks. Over here towards the southwest, up towards the central and northern plains, and into the Great Lakes has been the point of interest so far. But we're going to see quite a shift eventually as that ridge begins to move, away from the northeast here and out of the area. We're going to start to see that Gulf moisture come back into play. We'll start to get some forcing again, and we'll start to see more opportunities for showers and storms. The storm track itself is going to favor more activity towards this region. And as we continue to go forward, we're going to continue to see those above average values kind of popping up over here towards the deep south here. Looking at the Florida Panhandle and Peninsula getting into the action as well. So the Gulf Coast states are going to be probably getting the most out of this in regards to precipitation totals. We're not insanely above average here. It might be a slightly above average month. Of course, with us keeping an eye on the tropics at all times here, this can always become a bit of a wild card too. There could be some areas a little further off towards the north and east, in particular, that could see potentially more precipitation depending on how things pan out with this. But with that, I wouldn't say that we're dealing with an extremely anomalous month with precipitation right now. So I wouldn't necessarily ring the alarm or anything like that towards these regions, but those summertime showers and thunderstorms that we were seeing earlier towards this month, I would expect to see more of that next month, really. And then last but not least, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the last 20 years in particular and kind of see what we can reference in regards to the temperatures that we're dealing with now, and the type of weather, or I should say the type of weather we're dealing with now. So if we were to go back and take a look at what our neutral ENSO is currently set at right now. The day's the 23rd, obviously, and I would say we're right at about maybe negative 0.15, maybe 0.13. So if I were to go ahead and take a look at July, August, September JS right here, what I want to look through, and I'm actually going to go the last 30 years. The month that I kind of referenced the most here was, or the year that I referenced the most here, I'm just botching my words left and right, would be 2005, 2006. This was considered to be a weak La Nina year as a whole, so it's not the best that I have to go with, but it's close. Like I said, if I were to go back into a little further, I'm pretty sure I would find almost an exact match with a neutral ENSO, etc. Probably 1980s, maybe 1970s. But anyway, if we're looking at things from recent times, I would say a good reference point would be July 2005. So some things to remember from July 2005 were heat waves, which we're in one right now. We did have increased precipitation over towards the southeast as well. There were a couple of tropical systems towards the Gulf Coast that ended up occurring here as well. And then Alaska temperatures were the fourth warmest on record, of course. But this is pretty much the general rundown of what occurred here. I'll actually leave this linked into the description here in case you guys want to look at this a little bit further. But over towards the east, expect it to be a little bit wetter. Towards the west, a little drier. Definitely a little bit hotter over there. A little bit of a level off from what we're dealing with this week. So something to look forward to if you're anywhere east of the Mississippi as well. But That being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video and you found it useful. If you did, make sure you smash that like button, obliterate that subscribe button, and decimate that share button as well. I will see you later with a video once more. Until then, it's been Metalhead Weatherman. Take care and have a wonderful rest of your day.